Hello everyone, my name is Micaela Gaona and today I want to present my honors project for the course of macroeconomics that is about how the Peruvian economy has been affected by the pandemic. As most countries around the world, Peru has been affected by the spread of COVID-19. An important factor of the country that has been significantly affected is the economy. Just a little bit of background. Peru reported its first case of COVID-19 on March 5th, and just 10 days later, on March 15, President Martín Vizcarra declared Peru in a state of emergency and ordered lockdown for 15 days. Since the beginning of the lockdown, we all knew that the sector that was going to be most affected was the economy of the country. Many independent and dependent workers, informal workers, and small entrepreneurs started worrying when the lockdown started, because this meant that people won't be spending their money in buying things or services, and consequently businesses would shut down. However, we need to take in consideration that more than 70% of workers in Peru are informal, and this means that these workers are not included in payroll, they don't have a social welfare, they don't contribute to any pension, and they don't receive any benefits. The lockdown has been extended now until June 30, and this means the economy is going to be more and more affected. The United Nations said that it will be the worst economic recession since the Great Depression, and this is because most sectors of the economy of almost all countries have stopped due to the lockdown. Some of the economic sectors that have been the most affected by the pandemic in Peru are commerce, hotels, restaurants, tourism, shopping centers, textiles, and others. In Peru, there are 13 million workers, and 8.5 million work in the sectors I have mentioned before. Most of these sectors are working 25 to 50% of their total capacity, but in the case of commerce, around 31% is paralyzed. This results in about 4.7 million Peruvians' jobs being affected. The main concern is about the micro, small, and medium sized businesses, since they employ approximately 10 million people. The informality in Peru is a real issue because informal workers live from what they earn each day to survive, and they are not included in payrolls. So, probably, these 70% of informal workers have no income at all since the lockdown started on March 15. The Inter-American Development Bank said the GDP will fall between 1.8% and 5.5% in this year, and that it will continue to drop unless countries make policies to decrease the impact the pandemic is having on the economy. One of the main factors that is going to impact Peru's economy is the prices of raw materials. In 2019, minerals represented 59% of the country's total exportations, approximately 20.7% of the GDP. China is one of the main commercial partners for Peru, but unfortunately, the trading has stopped due to the pandemic, so this is going to impact directly on the exportation of raw materials. Tourism also contributes to 3.9% of the GDP without taking in consideration internal tourism that represents another 5% of the GDP. Just as an example, Peru received 4.4 million foreign visitors in 2019, so this sector is also going to be affected. When the lockdown started, the government was aware that a big part of the population was going to be impacted economically, so they started developing fiscal policies to help the population in need to avoid a recession and to increase the flow of money. Some of these policies benefited individuals, while others benefited businesses. One of the main fiscal policies that the government started with was the bonus. The first bonus was called Bono Yo Me Quedo en Casa and was directed to Peruvian families that are living in poverty. This bonus was divided into two parts, of 380 soles each. Another bonus was the Bono Independiente, directed to families of independent workers that are in a situation of vulnerability. This bonus was also divided into two parts of 380 soles each. The Bono Rural was then directed to poor families living in rural areas. This bonus was a unique payment of 760 soles. The bonus Bono Familiar Universal is for vulnerable families that haven't been benefited with the other bonus mentioned before. An important factor to take in consideration is that the bonus are one per home, and one individual can't receive two different bonus. The government is giving this bonus because they want to help the population in need, living in poverty and without income, but they also want to encourage spending from the population to reactivate the economy. Another policy adopted by the government during lockdown was the withdrawal from the AFP. First, the government allowed the withdrawal of maximum 2,000 soles for individuals that didn't contribute to the AFP in February, and then they extended the benefit for individuals that didn't contribute since March. It is important to mention that if someone has less than 2,000 soles in their AFP, they can withdraw the totality of what they have, but it can't be more than 2,000 soles. However, if you have received any of the bonus, then you can't withdraw the 2,000 soles from your AFP. Moreover, the government dictated that as an extraordinary measurement, in April, businesses will not withhold the 10% of the salaries of their workers as contribution to the AFP. Another policy dictated is that people that want to withdraw more from their AFP, they can withdraw 25% of their contributions. However, there are some specifications that need to be taken in consideration. The government did this policy to encourage the circulation of money within the population as an injection of capital. Another policy dictated by the government was the one regarding the CTS, Compensación de Tiempo de Servicio in Spanish. When you are working at a company and you are enrolled in payroll, this company is depositing your CTS to your bank account twice a year. You can withdraw your CTS from the bank when your period of working time at a company culminates. However, as a fiscal policy to encourage spending from the population and reactivate in some way the economy, the government allowed individuals to withdraw up to 2,400 soles from their CTS. This is an extraordinary measurement because in normal situations you can only withdraw your CTS when you stop working at a company. The word MYPE stands for Micro y Pequeña Empresa. A micro business has from 1 up to 10 workers, and a small business has from 1 up to 50 workers. In order to help these businesses and to avoid them from going into bankruptcy, the government is giving MYPEs credits up to 90,000 soles without interest, and they are refinancing their debts. However, the MYPEs which are benefited by this policy are only the ones in the sectors of production, tourism, commerce, and services connected to these sectors. An important fiscal policy that the government dictated is the one regarding taxation. For individuals and companies with incomes up to 21 million soles annually, the government postponed 3 months the date to present their annual returns and to pay income taxes. They want them to have more liquidity in money rather than spending in taxes. They did this so that individuals and companies have more money in the short term and also to alleviate the impact caused by the pandemic. Moreover, it was approved to make the decision of tax debts more flexible for those who are unable to pay. There are many other policies regarding taxes that have been implemented during the pandemic crisis, but these are the ones I consider relevant and important to explain. The reason the government decided to implement these policies is because they want to encourage more businesses to continue functioning, even though they have been affected by the lockdown. They want to prevent businesses from going into bankruptcy and promote the liquidity and flow of money. This will increase the chances of businesses surviving the pandemic and also will encourage the economy to keep running. The government decided to direct 30,000 million soles to help businesses to pay their workers and suppliers during the state of emergency. This money will be only directed for MIPYME, that are micro, small, and medium-sized businesses. But there are also other factors to take in consideration to see if your business could be part of this policy. The intention of the government is to help businesses pay their employees, debts to suppliers, or just to survive this crisis because of the pandemic, to avoid bankruptcy and keep the economy growing as well. This definitely is a difficult situation for the country, for the economy, and for the population. Many jobs being affected, businesses going into bankruptcy, the GDP is falling, consumerism is very low, and also a lot of uncertainty makes things even more difficult. The problem with Peru is the amount of informal workers we have in the country and how they have been affected by this crisis. In order to help formal and informal workers, companies, and natural individuals, the government has dictated fiscal policies that should help amortiguate the impact the pandemic is having on everyone. However, these policies are not a long-term solution, and this is what the government should focus on, since the crisis isn't going to stop anytime soon. Hopefully, with the help received by the government, businesses will continue operating, and this will contribute to the economy. But informality in the country makes it very hard for the government to make policies that benefit everyone. Definitely, the president will announce a reactivation policies for the economy, but the purpose of this video is to explain what the economic situation is like in Peru and what policies have been adopted to amortiguate the damage and help Peruvians and the economy as well. Thank you all very much for listening. I hope you found this video interesting and informative on what is the current economic situation in our country.